Okay, so happy Thursday and welcome to our NoCodeOps live community show. So today we're wrapping up our series on APIs, which I jokingly called our planet of the APIs. And so to wrap it up in style, I thought it would be a great idea to gather all our experts that have been here throughout these 2 months, sharing their experience and their knowledge with us for a last conversation around this topic that is ever so important to our no-code operators. So today, thank you again, everyone, for being here. We've got Sally Di Chiocha. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name
Yes, that's
correctly.
correct.
Rachel Cusumano, Chris Coleman, Guy Butts, and Jason Green. So thank you all so much for being here with us one more time and talking about APIs. I know that we've been nerding about this topic for a long time now, but we're so lucky to have you here again and have a final conversation around it. So before getting into questions from our audience, should we do a quick introduction on each and every one of you? Because, just for folks that might have not followed this series on APIs, it might be useful to know a little bit about you. So Stan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for getting my name correctly first time. My name is Stanley Dikiocha, dialing in from London. I'm a no-code developer. Well, I have a heavy background in energy, working in project and product management as well. So that obviously involves dealing with stakeholders and managing things. I got into APIs, I think about a year and a half or 2 years ago. And ever since then, I've dealt with so many API services and documentation and navigating that beast of documentation. So yeah, I'm just here to obviously share knowledge and just basically propel the no code community and yeah, add value where I can.
Oh, we all crashed at the same time. Mayday,
That's-
Mayday, Mayday.
yeah, we're
We're all
back.
back.
Well, at least we came back.
I felt like I was just booted out for saying.
We're back. But yes, so your event with us in particular was about API documentation. So we'll
Yeah.
make sure we're also going to share that link for people to catch up with that. But just a reminder to the audience here, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. I know that some of you have submitted them in our form, but this is a great opportunity to interact directly with our experts here. So don't be shy, ask your questions. We got something like 30 minutes to spend some time together. So make the most of it. So Stan, thank you so much. Did you want to add anything else before we all got
that,
booted out?
that was everything. Yeah, just here for the no code community. That's it.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much. Rachel, would you like to go next?
Sure. So my name is Rachel. I work in the marketing technology industry, currently in higher ed in the US. I've been in MarTech for a few years now, and a few things have been happening in the landscape. One is there's just so many platforms that have been exploding, so many vendors. And another is that we're kind of expected to do more with less. So I've discovered no code as a way to, expedite those experiences. And I've also discovered APIs starting from, just automating, Zaps to Slack to improve processes and to connect, systems that were previously disjointed. And it's really helped my team and our organization out. So I am just so happy to be here and learn from all of you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel. And as for Stan, I will make sure that I share the link of your presentation with us here in NoCodeOps. You gave us a super insightful conversation on all the resources available out there in terms of APIs, and when it makes more sense, whether to start building our own or using something that is pre-made. So exploring the SaaS kind of landscape as well. That was really cool. Jason, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I'm Jason Green. I'm CEO of Ample Cloud. We are an API integrations platform. We were speaking as a group kind of before this about some of the different tools that are out there, and I would consider myself a very early adopter of no code. I've been kind of in this space for almost 7 years now, and decided about 4 years ago that Zapier and Make and Mercado and some of those things don't really go far enough. So we are building a platform that is doing enterprise grade integrations in the no-code space, and we're bringing it to market at a price point that is similar to a Zapier or a Make. So hopefully the tools that we build progress how everyone interacts with APIs in the future.
And that's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to get my hands on that platform. Go further.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Hi, Tyler. Great to have you here. Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Guy, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name is Guy. I'm a bit of a low no-code everywhere kind of person. I'm in a bunch of communities. I try and test a lot of new platforms, speak to quite a few founders and CEOs of platforms to try them out, beta test them. But really, I enjoy taking on challenges and taking ideas from 0 to 1. I'm a part of, and I'm co-founding 2 startups right now. One's in stealth and one's launch, but kind of pre-revenue right now. So I'm kind of doing that. I've got an agency that I've started, this brand here, but I'm also starting another one in stealth, leveraging operations and automation, and just enjoy working with great people and solving problems, really. I also do low and no code in my professional career too. And I also do it in a volunteer sense. I'm also the IT consultant / low code in residence developer for Veteran MX Foundation, which is a US-based foundation for veterans doing motocross. So it's low no code everywhere. I'm actually speaking about that topic in April in Denver.
Amazing, Guy. And also, you need to add that you're one of the most active members in our community. You're ever so helpful, and I know that if I have an issue or if anyone does, I always send them to you first because you're always available.
Appreciate
to help. So thank you so much for that. Thank you.
Of course. Love helping.
Last but not least, in fact, Chris, you were the first person here for our series of APIs. You gave us a fantastic introduction on this topic, and we got so many people hooked onto them. And I think part of that is because your presentation was so amazing that it just led the way to all the following events. So would you like to tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Thank you for that, and thank you so much for having me on. It was really cool to be able to share some wisdom with everybody and see people get excited about it. So my name's Chris. I'm in the Midwest United States. I work for Xano, which, if you're not familiar, is a platform that allows you to build an entire backend for your application with no code, including your own APIs that power your application. I'm part of the customer success team over there. I spend most of my time creating YouTube videos for our YouTube channel and accompanying education to go along with the product, and just kind of talking to our users, seeing what they're building, helping them get unblocked with any questions that they have, and that's me.
Awesome, fantastic. Well, before we kind of start diving into APIs one more time, we're a community of no-code operators, right? I'm so lucky that all of you here are part of the community. It's fantastic. I always say a community is as special as its members are. And so I love building this space together with you all. But for everyone out there that might still not know about no-code operators, what would you say a no-code operator is? What would the definition be for that? Who would like to go?
A no-code operator, to me, is also in line with a citizen developer, but someone that can take on a business or a business user challenge and try to take it from 0 to 1, try to build an MVP, solve a challenge with technology, low no-code technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds good. Does anyone want to add anything to that?
I think Guy just used the terminology I was going to use, citizens developers. So these are like people that are embedded in their organizations that look for that use no-code approach and principles to solving problems. So be it the tools, be it the thinking, because when you're thinking, you have to be very streamlined and lean in your thinking approach. So I think that's what classifies as a no-code operator, a citizens developer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds good. Would you say there's a difference there between a no-code operator and a citizen developer?
Not really. It's just a fancy naming, I would say. It's essentially the same thing. But I think citizens developer sounds a lot more catchy, being that you're part of like a civilization that's looking for the best approach to implementing no-code solutions.
Yeah, I've seen a couple, and actually, I think that was one of the themes in our one of our latest posts in the community. Like, what would you call your role? Like, I've seen no-code architects, solutions developer. There's a whole bunch of descriptions out there, and I do think that, especially on this side of the world, there are still operators that don't know that they're actually no-code operators. They're using the tools, but they don't quite know that there's this whole career path in front of them that is starting to shaping up. So
yeah, I wonder
Yeah,
if in the future there will be a difference between the titles. Like right now, I think of citizen developer, they can leverage their specialties and then figure out the technology to build something that matches their specialties. And then an operator might be able to think of like the strategy and how to continue maintaining the tech and iterating on it. So perhaps we'll see that in the future in different orgs.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree there. You know, I suppose when I think about a no-code operator, it would usually be somebody that probably likes to be a lot more versatile than a citizen developer. You know, to me, a citizen developer has a very specific goal in mind, something that they know that they want to build, that they want to make happen. Whereas a no-code operator is somebody who would easily be adaptable to different situations, you know, different organizations and that sort of thing. So that's kind of my own distinction there between the two.
You likely also see citizen developers in larger organizations. That's why PMI is rolling it out in their coursework, because normally citizen developers work inside of a little more specified framework of platforms. They have IT vetted and verified and secure platforms that they work in that they can build inside of, but it's all kind of containerized usually. I mean, they can do what they need to in those platforms, but it's doing it usually. Whereas a no-code operator, yeah, we were going to look at Zapier, we're going to look at all these various things and try these things to try and get them working. But then, yeah, just, I mean, similar methodologies probably to how they do their things, but likely you'll see a no-code operator in a smaller startup, smaller business, and a citizen developer in a larger, more established enterprise, likely.
Guy, I think it's interesting that you said 0 to 1. And we, at our company, we take a pretty different approach where I think the 0 to 1 has been the norm to date. And I think what you'll see more of, especially with what we're focused on at our company, is 0 to done, right? Where like a lot of what happens, or what I found myself doing as a no-code developer early on, was it was always these really long fact-finding missions and, you know, reading documentation or trying to figure out what these API endpoints were, or I knew I wanted this thing to do this thing, right? But which pieces do I need? So smarter systems will remove the complexity by having experts that are building these systems, presenting you with only the things that you need to establish a given connection or business use case. And that removes a lot of the failure points. It removes a lot of the need for, or it makes upkeep a lot easier and something that can be done at scale, right? So I believe that these things and the way that we're building is more APIs as infrastructure, right? Where owning that middle layer and not saying, hey, this person or this platform, you know, who's actually in charge here. It's like someone sits in the middle, they help make the decisions as experts. And then what you end up with is 0 to done. The thing works, everybody moves on, and you're getting high value out of that integration.
I love that. I love that definition, zero to done. I want to start a whole new series on that. I have 5 speakers lined up right here. Awesome. Should we get into? Oh, sorry, Rachel. Off you go.
I was going to say that's amazing. I know that's a challenge I have. We're maintaining all of that documentation, and it's like if a field changes in one thing, making sure you track that across the systems and making sure things don't break with authentication. So I'm excited to see what you're up to, Jason.
Yeah, it's my surprised our CTO hasn't just shown up at my door and taken me out by now. But you know, it's that same thing, right? Because a lot of the complexity that happens in these point-to-point connections is the translation of the data, right? So you need it to be formatted correctly and, you know, handle these errors and a lot of the little nuance that you really only understand how to handle it or have the proper tools to handle it with specific code, right? And then by doing that on behalf of the user, if something changes, we can also change it on behalf of the user, deploy it kind of like an app in an app store, and then say, hey, you can now recall this data and resync it so that it's actually fixed. So it becomes a complete system that's almost self-healing as well, which is very, this is what I talked to Claudia about in my session a little bit, is for me, I had so much anxiety with these no-code tools as they were like stood up in my, I'd get calls in the middle of the night, and I'd get, things that were broken or things that were a little bit sketchy. So going that next step further allows everybody to get peace of mind back, which allows you to grow your business, which allows you to expand as the reliability increases. So that's exciting stuff.
That ties really well with a question we had in the forum. Let me just get it here. So from Stuart Malt, what do you struggle with the most when working with APIs? Who would like to go first?
Can I just step in here? So this is quite an interesting question. So I think right now I feel like I've seen all types of APIs in the sense that I wouldn't say it's new to me, but rather I would say more can be done, as I'll say. But one of the things I struggled with initially was the fact that documentation was just rubbish. Being able to identify the first point of call, which is authentication. So authentication is just basically opening the doors to the exciting and amazing things that the APIs offer you. And if you can't get that right, then you're just going to struggle, isn't it? So the first step is ensuring that your documentation is concise and clear as possible. And that was one of the things I struggled with. I think the other thing is kind of maintaining things. So I think a question was raised when I presented my own section about pagination. So these are like things where the API controls how much data you see per session. And some services do this because of capacity, and they think about this because it's positive for them. And then you have to think about how to control the ability for you to see more data or information from that API call. So it's just the tweaks around documentation, which obviously going back to Jason's point, so documentation, making things clear and concise as possible, kind of breaks that front door for people to obviously understand APIs a lot better and interact with the services. So I think that's my own view in terms of what I struggled with.
Yeah, fair enough. And somebody here in the chat, Noco, says, hi, there was a talk today in the NoCodeOps forum of issues with no code being too codey still, and concept of how various systems work together. So for example, Airtable is a database, but many other tools have their own database. How do you think this can be improved for users or in the community? Hi, Stuart.
I mean, I think I'll expand on that with what Stan just said, right? And that's the majority of, I would say 95% of people that are trying to integrate, and I think Rachel's example is really where I see these things fitting in the future, is they, people shouldn't have to go on these long fact-finding missions. I believe in the future, there is a place where 90% of people never have to read documentation or look at documentation to stand these things up, right? Where the platform that is building the integration layer in between has done all of that, and they're only presenting you with very easy to use fields. Our platform, for instance, we're making multiple calls to expansions and things. You never even see any of that happening, right? And that's where the complexity comes in, and that's where you have to get really detailed in some things like Zapier, if you can even call expansions, and a lot of those very technical bits should be handled by best-in-class integration platforms in the future, so that the documentation is just going to suck. That's how it is, right? But if you remove the need for people to look at documentation, like, who cares? It should be written for the engineers to understand, and then the end user should be getting some translated version of that in a software environment. I think that's, how
because
things
that teeters between low and no code. Being able to get out of drag and drop, if you can't work with that as the builder developer, you now transition into a bit more of low code where you have to look at documentation, you have to make those calls using the platform to do that. Like for instance, Make, you can do the API call pretty easily with really any of the 3 frameworks that you need to, but that then crosses the line into more low code. It's not just drag and drop. It's not just hook up your connection and drive your fields in. It's, okay, build your call, go read the REST documentation, go read the API docs. Get comfortable with JSON and arrays and all that.
Yeah, I have to say I'm so excited for that future with no documentation. However, right now the current reality is it's something that we have to do. I know I was really overwhelmed. Like, imagine being in preschool and not knowing your ABCs and someone gives you Shakespeare. That's what the documentation felt like to me. So what I literally did, I just Googled. I was like, what are the best APIs for someone who doesn't know what an API even is? And there are certain APIs that are built that are meant for these training purposes. I know in my session I mentioned the Trivia API, but a quick search, you can find a bit. And they really break things out. So it's like, this is the URL for a post request. And then this is what a parameter is. And then copy and paste this, this body. And it gives you just kind of a playground to work with it so you can start putting the building blocks together.
It's interesting to think about, I feel like we're almost talking about obfuscation here, and how much of this information should be presented when, when a user explores an API for the first time or explores an integration, right? Should we be, or should, I guess, these platforms be trying to educate users on, the basics of what an API is, or should it just be all completely behind the curtain and click a button and everything is magic? It's an interesting to think about, I guess, like, which is kind of the right approach. I guess what I'm saying is I feel like it's ultimately more valuable for these tools to feel a little codey, right? Because, it enables people to essentially subconsciously learn more about what they're doing while still having that ease of use of these no-code platforms at the same time. So I feel like there's a little bit of value there. Ultimately, the choice should be there to the user, but just something interesting to think about.
A question for you, Chris. How do you feel, like, just in the broader business world, right? Say I'm a small business or a non-tech company or, a retail company, etc. Do you think the general person at those companies cares, or do they just want to get the job done? Because that's where I think there's it's really interesting when you think outside of the context that we all live in, which is we do care and we do want to learn and we do want to, fidget around with things. So I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that, maybe it's project dependent. If this is something you need to get done tomorrow, maybe it doesn't matter how it works. It just matters that it works, right? But ultimately, I feel like it's important for people in that who are, put in that position to understand how it works, because it's going to help you if something goes wrong. To me, that's kind of the biggest thing, is if you don't know how something works and it breaks, how are you going to know what to do to try to fix it, right? And obviously, ideally, these things would just never break and they would work. But as we all know, that is rarely the case. So I do feel like, it's important for those users to understand how it works, if they have the time and the resources to spend to do that. And ideally, they would.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've seen this, like, that's a really great answer. I think we've made this attempt to go up market with these things and to really hit into these really large companies and see what kind of pushback or feedback we get on these, like, concepts. And it's been really interesting to see that if you stand something up that's stable, you almost rarely ever hear from the customer, and there's less opportunity for people to actually have run into issues, right? And it's it's a balancing act for sure of how you open these things up to people.
Nelson
that's
in
why,
the chat from
Jason,
I'm
that's
just
why no code was born, though. It was ease of development, quick
Hi,
time
Nelson.
to development, quick time from requirement to need to product. That's why no code was born, was really quick from idea to product.
Oh yeah, we had a customer
Now
that
we're
came to us.
extrapolating 10 years down the road, but now we're extrapolating into low code and, oh, I want more flexibility, I want more this and that. But why Zapier's, why the web flows, why the bubbles are all developed was quick time from idea to product.
Guys, we
Yeah.
have somebody in LinkedIn that Nelson. Hi Nelson. He says, no code literally changed my life. 3 years ago I was selling cars. Now I have a startup developed 100% with Webflow, Xano, and Weeds. I started this without knowing what a div was. That's amazing, Nelson. Congratulations. And you know, that's the power of no code, empowering so many people out there.
I can see the smile on Chris's face. When
it is great. Xano lights up. And we do have more questions in terms of tools and, you know, and APIs. So Tom Nasser says, have you seen any no-code tools that actually write APIs for you, or ones that help you navigate APIs?
I mean, I think Xano can kind of write. I mean, it writes the API. You build it visually, but it can then write, because then it does auto swag your documentation. So it's literally writing the docs for you. I mean, Xano is what I would look at for that.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I think Adalo does that too.
Yeah.
So Xano, Adalo, plenty of options.
And
let
then,
me get one more question as you go.
Looking forward, I think I came across a material online about a new AI model, which is being trained to actually suggest APIs and write it up for you. And I think I found that quite interesting. And that also got me thinking, is that going to be the new chat GPT for just APIs on its own? And that'd be really good, to be honest, because if you're someone who's new, you can explain your use case and you get a list of APIs, boom, and how to actually connect them, step-by-step guide. I think as a step for people who are kind of new into APIs. But I'll just reiterate and say, yes, I've seen Xano, and Xano is quite brilliant in helping you customize that API.
Chat API could be our next project together as a community.
Yep, next startup.
Anton Weiss says, is seamless API integration possible with no-code tools? What platforms are out there to facilitate this?
Yeah, that's
seamless.
That's
API
what we're
integration.
attempting to do.
Yeah.
With what we're building. And I think, Guy, just to, cap what you said previously, I think, we had a customer in December that came in, large enterprise. They had a 49-page proposal from a consultant. They had a 1-year timeline and a $500,000 plus budget to stand up this integration. We had them live, and the integration was set up in 2 minutes. We had them live, and we had their complete Webflow front end built and launched in 6 hours. And that's
amazing.
That's time and money and resource that they can divert to other things or get their personal time back or not have to worry about these things. And then their biggest problem now is we're 5 months ahead of their timeline. Good problem to have. So I do believe that these things are going to get much more powerful, and it's just a matter of time. So
awesome. We also have a question by Raj Kumar. I would love to know how to leverage APIs for two-way sync between two systems. Can you give us a common use case?
Whale sync's good for that, for two ways. But what they're talking about with two-way syncing is usually ETL and reverse ETL, getting into the data engineering world. Common use cases are getting data out of one system as your source, dropping it into your database or data warehouse as a target, doing some data manipulation in your database or data warehouse, and then getting it back out to a different application. That's what usually the two ways mean. But normally there's a central hub or a database or data warehouse that data goes into, manipulates, and out of.
Yeah. And
but Whale sync is a good no-code, low-code way to do that.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. So there's a project I'm currently working on which kind of explains this correctly. So I'm using Xano as the warehouse itself, Bubble as the front end, and Salesforce as my data reference. So I'm going to get data from Salesforce with APIs, manipulate that data in Xano, and display that data in Bubble. So that's a good example of a three-way communication between utilizing APIs for just one single purpose.
Guy, what you described is similar to how our systems work underneath the hood, where we're doing a full ETL on the front end. That's where we're translating, storing, building more specific triggers that our destinations are then listening to. So you can distribute on both sides, multiple sources to a single destination, single source to multiple destinations in that organized data where, and that means you're able to recall these things, run bulk imports, run bulk processes. It's very and it all happens. You don't even see it happening. So it's very interesting.
That's cool. We've
It's
got a question for Rachel. We've got a question for Rachel by Laure Lozano. What are the best practices for API development, in your opinion?
It's interesting as you go into the larger orgs. I think I started my career one-person marketing team. It's very easy to be like, oh, wow, I got this. I'm going to start building without putting thought or intention to it. And I think I've personally learned the hard way. Without documentation, without having that thought behind the build, you're going to get in trouble down the road. So that's the first thing I'd recommend to anyone starting it out. Like, map what you want to do before you actually start the build.
Mm-hmm.
Are they asking about building APIs or building integrations, automations to the API?
Probably just best practice when you start using them. So,
okay, because using APIs and building them are two different things.
Yeah,
I was speaking to using APIs.
Yeah, and I think your talk, Rachel, specifically was about, when does it make more sense to build your own API or using a pre-made, or integrate them. So that's something we can share with them as well after. Let me see a next question from the audience. And to anyone here watching right now, we have a couple minutes left to our live. So feel free to drop any questions you might have if you haven't submitted our form. So yeah, make sure you drop them in the chat. I saw something else that I wanted to ask. Oh yes, just an easy question to anyone who's starting to learn about APIs. What resources are there? Where can they start from? If they want to start learning about APIs, integrating them, where should they be starting from?
I think
they should start at the beginning of the series.
Yeah.
They should join NoCodeOps first.
Join NoCodeOps, watch the Planet of the API series. What else? Rachel, what were you saying?
I was about to say they need to sign up for the NoCodeOps API bootcamp.
Or that as well, 100%, 100%.
They need to find a use case where APIs are part of the integral part of the build. Find the use case. Hey, I want to connect X system to Y system. Mm-hmm. Then you find the medium, be it Zapier or Make. That's where you're going to actually put those topics, those practices into play.
Yeah, I agree. Having a project or an idea is a great start, because then APIs kind of come naturally. You're starting with an idea, you're starting with a project, an MVP, and there you're going to end up, whatever tool you're using, you're going to end up hitting a limitation or something. You're going to need an API to integrate more tools into your idea. And so that's when you will start learning about them. But yeah, definitely all the tips that we shared here today are great starting points. So for anyone else, if you want to get more in depth with that, reach out to us. We got you sorted. All right. Before we wrap up, because I don't see, we have one more question from the form. Postman versus Insomnia, which do you prefer and why?
I'm a Postman person.
Yeah, same here. But for a use case, so right now we have more and more services and platforms utilizing GraphQL, which is the new type of API going forward. I found Insomnia a useful tool to convert REST to GraphQL. So for that particular use case, I'll pick Insomnia over Postman. But generally, Postman is just my friend. And I actually walked through this in my series, so that's quite nice. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, I would. I'm a big fan of Insomnia myself. I don't necessarily have like an allegiance between the two tools, but I think I just like the way the user interface of Insomnia looks a little bit better personally. I like that it's a desktop app instead of a web app, and specifically, Stan, which you just mentioned, converting GraphQL. I used Insomnia for the same exact thing before, and it's really handy.
Postman has
Amazing.
a desktop app, by the way.
Does it really? I didn't even know.
Yeah. Yeah, Mac and Windows.
Awesome. So if we think about the future of APIs, 3 years from now, what are we going to see? And then we can wrap up this beautiful series. And that's a final dot. I'm gonna miss the API talks. It's been with me for the whole of 2023 so far. So it has been great. What should we expect in the future, Jason?
So I don't know if you want to share the link to this or not, but we did a whole hour on the future of APIs, and that's very much, I think, where our company is focused, is into the future. I think you'll see from the technologies themselves a renewed emphasis on stability and scalability and reliability of their APIs as they start to pull back on the amount of free offerings and the amount of things that they're providing to their users as free integrations moving forward. So it's going to provide a more stable foundation to build off of technically. And then I think that ultimately leads to more sophisticated platforms that are easier to use and more scalable.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
I think
Rachel?
Yeah, as an operator, it's interesting that we had this discussion, as we're going to have one feature where you don't even see what's happening. I want to go back to what you said, Chris, about enabling some of these operators, because I know in the MarTech world, a lot of people love to just get hands-on. Even if we didn't previously understand a technology, we like to dive in. So I could see a lot of platforms going that route of trying to educate their end user to get more into development, and this being more a part of just common departments and not something reserved to IT or like a NoCodeOps developer particularly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're saying
Stan,
there's
I
going
always
to be
liked
citizen developers at every company?
I always liked Webflow's approach, where you could get in there and you could use this thing, and there was it was a playground, right? When you come into it, and then slowly a year later, you're like, oh, I guess I actually learned what this was, and this was, and this was. And a lot of that came from using common terminology, where instead of calling it a block, they called it a div block and a section.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't, they use those common terms. So I think that's an interesting way to educate people, is by using the correct technical terms.
Stan,
That's
were
what
you going to
citizen
add
development is
something, I
doing
think?
as well
Or
for no
Guy,
code,
you
no
can
code
go.
development. No, it's fine. Around standardization, that's what PMI is doing with their citizen development course, which I'd recommend all of you guys take, the foundation course at least. They're standardizing terminology. They're standardizing how that's happening. Yeah,
We're in talks with them at NoCodeOps, so watch the space.
love it.
Yeah, Stan, I'm trying to get you in.
No, that's fine. I think it's quite interesting hearing people. I think I was just going to give you a very short one. I think we're going to see more services introduced, like that self-service journey, something similar to what Xana does right now, being able to customize your APIs and what you want to get from it, and more emphasis on security and privacy, because a lot of people need to understand that that's very important. So it's all good and gravy for you to pass information from one endpoint to the other, or one system to the other, but you need to understand how to secure that information going forward. I think those are the two things I see as the future of APIs. Generally, just educating people on how to adopt them, I would say.
Awesome, thank you. And Chris, you started it. Do you want to finish it off?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of echoing, what Stan said. I am most excited about more people learning about APIs and how they work and how to use them. And I get so excited every time I hear a story about how somebody was able to, regardless of what platform they were using, take one service and integrate it with another, sometimes with just a few clicks, and they're able to solve their own problems. And I think that is so exciting. And I look forward to more people being able to do that.
Amazing. Well, thank you all so much once again, for giving us your time, your expertise and knowledge to come here and, just spending some weeks with us at NoCodeOps on this series of APIs. We absolutely appreciated your inputs in all of the sessions. I'll make sure that I'll just share the link to the playlist so everyone can watch all your sessions under one playlist in our NoCodeOps YouTube channel. I'll make sure I email people as well, DM, I'm always in touch with everyone. So yeah, we got you. So thank you all again, and please do stick around. Our next series will be based on no-code and AI. So let me know what you want to learn about that, and I'll make sure that I reach out to another 5 or 6 or 4 amazing speakers just like you all here, and just keep providing the best value to our community. So thank you all again, and take care, and I'll see you at the next one.
Thanks, Claudia. It was great talking with you.
Thanks, Claudia.
Great having you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.